Hey there, it's Wednesday evening, and I wasn't going to do this to begin with. I did a lot of stuff today, including putting together the red thing you see in front of you and then painting it red. Let me briefly go through what I did here. All right, I don't know exactly where I left off with the last one. I think I had the bottom plate cut. I had the ring with the segments on the inside. Well, anyway, the next day I took those segments out of the inside, all right, and I put them over there, which they'll get recycled somewhere, but they're not going back in this because I thought that, like, I spent the evening before looking at speaker designs. In particular, I went to a site called of a manufacturer called Morel, and they manufactured this type of speaker motor with the voice coil on the outside. Okay, and looking closely at that, I can't see any significant gap. And that was the question I was asking. It's okay, when you look at your typical, like, not a bar magnet, a horseshoe magnet. Okay, so you got the poles on each, on each end of the horseshoe, right? But they're separated, okay, to get there. And I was wondering how effective, like, would you reduce the magnetism on the ends of those poles by pushing the legs together? That's what my concern here was with the gap. So, like I said, I looked at those designs. They got an interesting video there. I'm actually going to put it in here so you can have a look at it. And there's no significant gap there between the magnet and the outside shielding cap. Even though I knew this, even though I found that out, I still said to myself, maybe, okay, how much time is it going to take you to cut another ring? To go on the outside instead of on the inside. I mean, I want to give this the best chance to succeed. I don't want to half-ass this. I want it to work properly. So what I did is I cut another ring. I cut that into segments. I've got them all sized perfectly with the calipers, so they fit properly. Got them glued onto the outside of the ring this time. I don't know if I had the top ring cut. No, I didn't. I talked about it, didn't I? Yeah, I talked about cutting the top ring with the jigsaw. Well, I did that, all right, with the 3/16" plate. And then I did it again with the 1/4" plate. So that's what you see on top here. This is 2 layers of steel of the ring and the center. So I have a voice coil gap that's uniform as I could possibly make it. Well, not as uniform as I could possibly make it. As uniform as I could possibly make it within time limits, okay? I can spend hours and hours and hours fussing over something and get it massively perfect, but I don't think it really matters that much. It has to be close, and I have it very close. So I have a uniform gap, as uniform as it needs to be, and it's 7/16 of an inch high. So this center one is attached directly to the magnet. This outer one pulls or transfers the other pole that's on the bottom side of the magnet up to the top. And that gap in between is very powerful. When I went to put that ring on the outside, it grabbed on there like crazy, and I had to use 2 screwdrivers, and I kind of messed up the steel there a little bit, trying to pry it over to get them apart to maintain that gap. The shims that I have, which were 2 layers of cardboard put on top, they didn't do a thing. Very powerful. That's where I am right now. The magnet assembly for the motor is done. What I need to do next, and I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon, although I want to, I really want to, is work on the voice coil. And here I have the original, the voice coil in this. You can see right here. This is 7/8 of an inch tall. And it's 4 layers. It's 8 ohms. I measured it with my ohm meter. It's exactly 8 ohms, actually. I'm not interested in 8 ohm voice coil. I'm interested in a 4 ohm voice coil. I could reuse this wire and use half of it to give me that 4 ohms. Or what I can do is I can use thinner wire, which I have a roll of here. I bought this for another reason. This is 28 gauge wire, whereas this here is 24 gauge. I could use 2 runs of this. It'd be almost like a dual voice coil, but they'd be wired in parallel. I would wind 2, like enough wire to make 2 8 ohm coils and then parallel them together. And what that will give me, it'll give me more power handling because 2 strands of this wire is significantly bigger than this. And also it makes it more compact because this is thinner wire. It'll fit into a tighter package, like if you're using more of it. The other thing was the thickness of the form that the voice coil is wrapped around. I measured this, and as it turns out, it's exactly the same thickness as the aluminum flashing that I have. So I just cut a piece of this. This is kind of beat up, and I did a little test to see if I could straighten it out and make a curve. What you do is you just put it down a flat, clean surface, and then you take a stick and push it down, you pull it through, and that'll make it curl, okay? So I'm fairly confident that I can get, this thing needs to be around 22, a little over 22 inches long to get that gap. I'm fairly confident that I can get a good, clean circle. However, you know, I need a form to put that on so I can wrap the voice coil around as well. So there's that. The other thing I was experimenting with was the accordion surround. All right, now looking at this spider here, and if you saw when I cut it out, it was kind of very stiff, and you can see it's pretty stiff. So I was thinking about, you know, things that could dope this to make, like dope regular canvas to make it this stiff. And what I'm trying right now is water-based polyurethane. I've got a piece of canvas here that I've soaked, I've brushed it in, and I've got it laid on this piece of parchment paper so it'll, you know, it won't stick. And I want to see how stiff that is after that dries overnight. The idea to make the form for the surround and for the spider is to route it out with like ball nose bits and then coat that area with silicone so that it will release. Can't think of anything else that's going to make it release that won't interfere. Like Vaseline will interfere with this, whatever glue you're going to put on. So thinking just tube of silicone, smear it on, spread it out nice and thin. Then I would have to make like a negative. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can push the cloth down inside, like maybe make a tool to run around and push it down inside. I don't know how uniform that would be. This is something else I would have to experiment with. Get another scrap of this, make a test ripple cut, that's the accordion shape, push the thing down and see how it works out. I have the magnet on. What I have here is foam in the gap. I put that in there to stop the paint from going inside there when I painted it. I also put it in there to keep any dust and metal shavings out of there. All right, you don't want to get metal shavings down there. Although it's fairly easy to get the stuff out. Better not to, though. And I'll tell you, this thing is heavy. All right, this has got to be a good 30 pounds right here. So, yeah, this is going to be big. It's going to be heavy. Right? And I got the bolts sticking out the back here. I know I shouldn't be lifting it up. To attach to the frame of the woofer. Okay? It has to go on the back. This thing's there. Then there'll be like a ring that goes around for the spider to attach to or fasten to. That thing is that ring is going to be somewhere around 16 or 18 inches alone. Okay? Because that spider has to be fairly big. I don't know if it can be smaller because I don't have as much travel. And the other thing I have to work out is the height of the new coil. Okay, because the coil height here is 7/8, like I said. The gap in the old one was 3/8. So this is a overhung, what's known as overhung. Underhung means that your coil is actually shorter than the gap. That's on the floor. So if you had a 7/8 inch gap height and a 3/8 inch coil, that'd be underhung. However, I don't think I can't get that. I'm not going to be able to wind the coil that short on this. I would like to, although that would really limit how much excursion I would have. So I'm probably going to be aiming for somewhere around the same height for the coil. But since this has got a bigger gap, that means that more of the coil will actually be in the gap at all times, if that makes sense.
I think that allowing for the book being, after all, a parody, something like 1984 could actually happen. This is the direction the world is going in at the present time. In our world, there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement.